Good morning. Welcome to the Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee meeting. Today is March 13th. It's 9:01 a.m. and we'll convene the meeting.
Yes, good morning. Sergio Ricardo, Stephanie Stark,
Here.
David Lackey,
Here.
Alex, and then Royce Larson.
Here.
And then we have a full quorum.
Is there, sorry, shouting on the mic. And is there anyone here from the public who'd like to speak on an item that is not listed on the agenda today?
Let's see. If you're in the public and wish to speak on this item, we do not have any public comment.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda is the minutes, and we have two sets of minutes, so we'll take each of those independently. The first for consideration is the February 14th, 2025 minutes. Are there any questions, or this was the general meeting? Are there any comments on the minutes? Excuse me, I think that's February 13th. Yes.
So I'll move that we approve the minutes of February 13th as presented.
I'll second that motion.
And we'll do a roll call. Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex, and then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then approve the minutes of February 13th.
Thank you. And our next minutes are from, we had a special meeting, and that was on, February 28th, 2025. Are there any suggested edits or comments on those meetings? Those minutes, excuse me.
I see, Madam Chair, I see Matthew Mayton on the list of members that were present. I think he was there.
No.
No, he was not. So we'll strike that.
And no other comments. Thank you.
I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes of February 28th as amended.
I will second.
And we'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex, and Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then vote carries 5-0 to approve the minutes as amended.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is agenda management. And I wanted to see if it's possible we could move item number 2, which is the APAC Temporary Ad Hoc Subcommittee. Could we move that? I know it's a continued item, but could we move it maybe before item number 4? After Restoration Oaks Ranch Farm Stay?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, very good. We'll do that. So we're moving item number 2 to item, I guess, after item 3. So become the new 4. And 4 becomes 5. Perfect. Is there anyone else here today, either joining us remotely, who would like to continue an item? And if so, which item? And if you could explain why and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Chair Stark, I did receive an email from Angie asking for us to continue item number 1, which is the Canvia Vineyard Estate. And they would like to hear it next month. They just said that they're still not ready.
Okay, so we have a request for continuance for item number 1, Canvinia Vineyard. We have continued this a number of times. Has anyone spoken with any of the representatives or the planner? Is the planner here today?
Chair, as you recall, we kind of bifurcated this motion, so we took action on the application that the planner was involved in.
Aye,
So
that's right.
now it's just for ongoing
Ongoing
eligibility. So
eligibility.
it's just us.
That's right.
But I haven't been in
Okay.
contact with anybody.
I did ask the agent if she wanted to extend it like 1 to 2 months, you know, and she
Yes.
said that she would be ready by for the April 10th meeting.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I'm on the fence. I think that this item has been continued multiple times. I would be inclined to make a motion to just move forward and recommend that the contract be found inconsistent and start a non-renewal process. But that would be my opinion.
I totally understand. I'm on the fence as well. Any other thoughts from committee members?
I think I'm in the same position as you. I could see taking that action today as the committee. I would certainly, if we do grant them the 1 more month extension and it's the same situation, I would not want to continue it again after April. So I'm okay if we give them 1 more month continuance, and then certainly I would be supporting, if they're still not ready and attending, that we could take action at that point.
And just so I get some clarity, if we're talking about going down the next step of non-renewal, would it be the 60-day letter? Or are you thinking the 30-day? Because they've already been noticed.
Correct.
Yes.
30 days. That
So
would
you're
be my-
thinking that, okay. So that's one option, just to make that distinction. What we could do is issue a 30-day letter, which is just what we call it 30 days. It's about 30 days. It's a letter just saying, come and talk to us. We have some concerns about your ongoing eligibility. And we do that for other cases that have not. This is a little different in that it's been bifurcated. There's a history here. They've been coming, they understand, but it gives them that little bit of notification in writing, and we can still keep down our path and our process, but yet allow them another month. It wouldn't hurt them. I mean, it would give them another month, but it'd give us that, maybe that level of comfort that we're taking steps towards addressing this.
The process has begun.
It's begun, exactly.
And we can discuss this again in April.
Mhm.
You know, the applicant can come in and then the notice could be canceled if they meet.
Or we just issue the notice, but by the time they come, it'll be 30 days later,
Correct.
so.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
The chair, in that scenario, if we sent a 30-day letter,
We have to get that out very quick.
yeah, but would we
Agendize it.
agendize that as a separate item? So we potentially continue the current item that's on our agenda, and then
Mm,
add this as a consideration of ongoing eligibility as a separate new item?
We could do that. I need to count the number of days. Let me see if we even have 30 days. That's another thing.
I mean, that was another question, and maybe council can weigh in on it. I mean, I think we would have if the committee wanted to take a motion today to recommend non-renewal, I think we would have the ability, because this has always been they've been on notice for this project for ongoing eligibility since September of last year. And even in the bifurcation motion in January, it was clear that, we're going to bifurcate this and continue to give them time to bring in. So I think, as far as a noticing thing, if we were to take action today, we would have the ability to do that. So I don't know that the 30-day letter is.
It's just putting it perhaps putting it in writing, and it could be less than 30 days. We call it a 30-day letter, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
We could send them a separate letter and
versus like how we do the 60-day letter. We
Yeah.
want to make clear if that's the first time they're being, you
Yeah.
know,
We
put
could
on
do that. We
notice.
could do that too.
But so yeah, I'm okay if we continue this and send out the letter and agendize it separately for non-rate or consideration of ongoing eligibility.
And so to clarify, you're talking in the letter that would go out would be the 60-day letter? The
I mean,
30.
just as a general note.
Yeah. Yes. So council, how could we do that? Would it be, we could say, just as a matter of course, agree to, would we have to have separate motions to continue the item, on item number 1 to the next meeting and also write a notice to appear letter? Could that be one motion?
To you. And either would
Oh.
work. You could combine it. You could do
Okay.
them separate. It's just how clean kind of.
Okay, I see.
Or if you have any disagreement on the board, you may have folks who want to continue it, but not
yeah.
in the letter.
Right. Okay. So we could do 2 separate motions. Is there any other discussion on this?
Still don't understand why would we need a separate, another item with the same topic, ongoing eligibility.
A separate motion, you mean?
Right, no, as far as adding, another item to the agenda.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sending a letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I was thinking, you know, since we're sending the letter, to emphasize the point that on the April meeting, that is going to be, you know, consideration of potentially non-renewing the contract for, and so that, you know, we could have it as a separate new item, but I think you're right. We could probably still just continue the current item and handle it that way.
We could do 2 motions. The first motion would be to continue this item to the next meeting, the April meeting, at the request of the applicant. And then we could vote on that. Still, motions on the floor. Is there a second? I would do a second motion for the notice.
I'll second.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Alex, Royce, I'm sorry. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
Vote carries 5-0.
Thank you. And I'll make another motion to send a notice to appear letter to the applicant or landowner, notice to appear letter indicating the county may take a potential action to non-renew the contract based on ongoing eligibility. Contract number 77 AP 032. Mm-hmm.
Second.
And then Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Hold on, do we have a discussion on the motion?
I was just going to suggest if you were open to just amending the motion to have the specific section that we've been talking about for the commercial ag production.
Sure.
That would be Uniform Rule 1-2.3 A1.
Thank you. So with the addition of the uniform rule David mentioned,
Second.
seconded, I don't know if we need to do that, but go ahead. A motion was on the floor just for clarification. Voting, Sergio?
Okay. Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex. And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then vote carries 5-0.
Thank you. And our next item discussion is the Restoration Oaks Farm Stay. This is for Ag Preserve Contract 68 AP 022. And looks like one of the representatives is Steve Connor, who I saw his name earlier in the day. And I don't see a planner listed on this. Oh, I'm sorry, that is the planner. Excuse me. And this is a proposal. This is I think, one of our first items after the Ag Enterprise Ordinance. So it is to propose a farm stay, and a lot of this is existing. When I look through the packet, there's a lot of information with photographs and a diagram of the proposed change in the structure internally. And with that, would Steve, are you on with us? Could you give us a brief overview of the project, please?
Yes, good morning. This is Steve Connor, the planner. And I had spoken with Mr. Lackey about some of the components that were shown on some of the plans. Early in the application, the applicant had been told that we needed to look at other things on the property, but since then we've sort of narrowed down the focus of this application to be just the farm stay. And I'm not sure if I have anything else to add. I'm available for questions, of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Is there any representative from the applicant? Are they here today? Would they like to say anything? Oh, hello, welcome. I'm very good. Okay. If you'd like to speak, we need to go to the podium so that everyone can hear. Thank you. And while we're getting there, I just wanted to see if there's anyone here today who'd like to speak on this item from the public.
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, thank you. And close public comment. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Ed Seaman. I'm the general manager, Restoration Oaks Ranch. My family owns the ranch. We're the first Ag Enterprise Ordinance applicants. It was voted on December 20th. We applied on the 23rd. So Steve and I are laughing about, we do a lot of guinea pig jokes now. So we're the guinea pigs. And it's important that I understand the process. I'm here today to support the process, maybe answer questions you might have that Steve would not be able to answer, and just to keep this moving as expeditiously as we can. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Connor. Before you leave the podium, are there any questions of the applicant at this time?
Yeah, for Mr. Siemens, so thank you for being here in person. We appreciate that, being able to get the knowledge directly about the property. So I have some questions more on the ag on the property. It's a very large property. In the material, it was just indicated that the ag production is 10 acres of blueberries. Is there any, I mean, it looks like it has had cattle operations and grazing in the past. Is that current, or is it proposed to be?
We still have a cattle operation, no more than 80 head at a time. It's a cow-calf operation, hamburger cows. And they have been around for a long time. So before we even owned the property, there was cattle out there. So what we've done is kind of increase the size of the pastures and reduce the number of cows in the herd to fit with our vision of a regenerative ranch.
And those are, you run the cattle, it's not a lease operation?
It is a lease
But
operation.
he's a lease
Yes.
operation, okay.
Claude Loftus is the cattleman. We tried cattle. We do better with berries.
And just looking at the aerial, and I think maybe there was some information in the packet that I overlooked, but it's just in terms of water sources that you primarily use for the cattle, is it wells, is it troughs, combination?
We have one primary well at the front of the property that we use for the berries and for the residents. We have another well in the main valley towards the back of the property that supports a cattle trough there. Well, 2 cattle troughs now. And then we have another well at the north gate of the property that supports a third water tank and cattle trough. And we're in the process of building another water trough on that freeway side of the property that we hope will get done this year and maybe next year.
Okay, yeah, thank you on that. I did have some questions on, so Teresa, if you could bring up, one of the maps had sort of the inset map of the um, ranch house and where the farmstay was going to be.
This one? No.
Well, maybe you can leave it there. I had some questions on. It was unclear what the yellow polygons were intended to show.
The larger, well, they were labeled, but it got really cluttered. The lower right side is parking area. And that is just behind the farm store, the Blueberry Hut. The entrance to the freeway, you see on the left-hand side, you go up. That area straight ahead from the freeway entrance, if you get the mouse
Right.
down a little bit, yeah, go straight. There's a parking area there. Then the smaller yellow rectangle is the farm store, and then behind that larger area that's predominantly a rectangle is also parking. If you go up from, so go a little bit to the, right there. That's a lawn. That area is a large ranch house lawn. That would be part of the farm stay. You go straight up from that lawn, you got that rectangle right there. That is the actual ranch house that we're talking about. The cookhouse is just to the right of it. So there's the cookhouse, and then everything on the right and above of that would be for farm operations. That would not be included. So you're really looking at the lawn, the ranch house just above it, and then just a little bit to the right and below the cookhouse are part of the farm stay.
So particularly those, the larger polygon on the south side of the road that looks like it on land that could be in production, is that for like the U-Pick Blueberry parking?
Yeah.
That's where they come in? Okay, so it's not really for the farm stay. You're just showing some of the current parking areas for.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when it first started, there was a huge long list of things to be permitted. That, it explains a little bit what you were talking about earlier. We only wanted the farm stay, but when we originally did these maps, and you have the creek that I've indicated up there as well, I was just trying to meet the list of items that were on that original list that really didn't have anything to do with the farm stay. And the idea that this is a farming operation, like this, the farm stay as another source of revenue for an agricultural operation, was something that in my mind I wanted to really emphasize. And so that's why you see a lot of that stuff there. I never went back and pull anything out. I just left it as is.
Teresa, yeah, there's a site plan with some of the house and buildings labeled that had questions on. Yeah,
Is it this one?
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe zoom a little bit. Yeah, so as I think all of us know, as part of the Ag Enterprise Ordinance, the board did adopt some updates to the uniform rules to add additional language to find certain of those AO uses as compatible uses on contracted lands. Rule 2-5 is the rule that was added for farm stays. And on its face value, it's pretty much straightforward. I mean, as far as clearly this is on a minimum 40-acre premises. The main focus that the board wanted for this use and some other uses is that it would be consistent with the requirements for the zoning ordinance, and particularly for those AEO uses. I just wanted to remind you, so in the zoning ordinance for AEO uses, it can be cited, the farm stay itself can be cited in the principal dwelling, or it can be cited in a converted structure or new structures, and then those could either be clustered in a 2-acre envelope to the principal dwelling, or if they're going to be remotely sited, then the farm stay and associated uses would have to be limited to a 1 acre envelope. So in this case, farm stay would be, within that 2 acre envelope. So that would be one suggestion for, and then I think it could be one that the planner could verify, is that the 2 acre envelope be depicted on either this site plan or some other site plan to define where the AEO uses would be, or excuse me, where the farm stay uses would be occurring. And then maybe just the clarification on this one, the cookhouse, how is that functioning? Is that,
Right now, we are looking for long-term rental on it, and our family is using it.
so it's not a structure that would be providing meals to the farm stay registered guests?
It's not really a cookhouse anymore.
Okay, so it's more of a personal.
It's a
bu-
residence.
It's a personal use building. Okay. And then the office garage, that's for the ag operation office and
Yes.
garage. How about the cottage? How is that being used?
Again, for family use, when you mentioned the cookhouse is, I thought you were talking about the cottage. The cottage is residential use. The cottage, we're looking for a long-term renter. The cookhouse is kind of an ancillary building that we have set up for people to play cards or to just lounge. There's a sink in there and a bunch of chairs. If we had a pool table, we'd put a pool table there, like a rec room. And then the cottage is the residence that I described earlier.
And then you've got sort of an event fire pit area and event lawn area.
Yeah.
Is that a future use that you're going to be applying for?
Well, the people that rent the ranch house are going to use the lawn. I mean, we want them to use the lawn. It's beautiful. If we are going to use it in the future, it would be for events. And that gets into a whole different conversation with the barn and the field days and all the other stuff that we do out there. That's not a part of the farm stay.
I would just, maybe there's some relabeling of some of these uses, because I think right now, obviously, the focus is on the farm stay. And so if, what's described as an event lawn, maybe for some other use, then it probably shouldn't be depicted as such currently. And I'm sure you're aware of it. And one of the other points that I talked to Steve Connor about was, obviously the board adopting this program, there's a lot of interest from landowners to take advantage of, to have the opportunities for additional farm income. But also for some uses like the farm stay and the campground, there's opportunity for also collection of transient occupancy tax for those uses. And so that's one of the development standards.
Say that last part again.
Or to collect transient occupancy tax. And so one of the development standards in the zoning ordinance for the farm stay is that the owner has, will be, when they're renting out the farm stay units, they will be collecting TOT tax on whatever value for the stay. And so that, to demonstrate that, you would need to go to the treasurer tax collector's office and get all of the correct paperwork set up. I think it's a transient occupancy certificate. It basically enrolls you in the program and says that you will remit the.
I'm familiar with TOT. Yep.
So just as a reminder, I mean, I think it's one of the development standards that needs to be demonstrated. Those are my main comments.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that you're looking for a renter, a long-term renter for the cottage. And is the cottage part of the farm stay? That's outside of the farm stay? Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. And also for the committee members, I wanted to clarify that this contract also includes a little parcel. I think it's a 1 acre parcel.
Progressive Freeway.
Yeah, so just to clarify for everybody that the contract is made up of two parcels. And also, thank you, Mr. Seaman. You are a constant responder to the annual questionnaire. And so we have that, and I know the committee is probably wondering about the annual questionnaire to the assessor's office. So we do have information about your grazing operation and the blueberry operation.
On that little square across that other parcel that's across the highway or the freeway, what is that used for? Is that, I looked on to an aerial photo and it didn't seem to have any structures on it or anything.
That happened before we acquired the property.
Mm,
The Restoration Oaks Ranch has a pretty interesting history with the freeway. I think the freeway kind of split us a little bit. Originally, I believe that was there for a well. It's closer to the creek, closer to any kind of surface water, groundwater underneath a creek, and a road kind of fell apart again before our time, and there's no real access to it without going through neighboring lands. And up until recently, the neighbors have not really wanted us to do that. So it's still possible that we can put a well on that land, and it would probably be a good well, but we haven't gotten around to it. We've got other fish to fry at the moment. My father-in-law was actually confronted by one of these neighbors with a gun as he was trying to, investigate the property. And so the guy said, "Get off my property." So my father-in-law got off the property. So we don't have real good experience with that little chunk of land right now.
thank you for that history. Thank you again. I want to, support what David said. Thank you for coming today. It's really nice to hear directly from the applicant and the landowner to hear like that cattle. I was wondering the same questions, like, is there other use for it's a nice piece of property. And, but to that, is there any other questions? Royce, do you have a question, or Alex?
I think I know the answer. As part of the ongoing eligibility, it's the farm stay, but other aspects. And that cottage, the ranch house, the event lawn. I think it's all within a 2 acre envelope.
It is.
Yeah, and when I was meeting with Mr. Connor, we kind of just did a quick calculation, and it was, I think less than 1.5 acres. So, but that's why I still suggest that, Mr. Siemens work with the planner to depict that on whatever appropriate site map for the permit. Yeah. I did have a question just more for our understanding, and as far as the blueberries, what's sort of the peak season for blueberries?
Depends on the weather. Most of the time it's June. This year, because we've had such a mild winter, thankfully we've got some rain in March. That would have been bad, but it's been pretty mild. So we expect it'll be probably May this year. And the blueberry season is pretty short. It's only 4 to 6 weeks. So when we start promoting, hey, we're getting ready to open, we always have to emphasize it's now or never. You can't time it on a calendar. You got to time it on the season. So this season we think it'll be May. Usually it's June.
And for the blueberry bushes, how many years? Do you have to replace those?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a lot of misinformation about blueberry bushes. They're a perennial crop. They'll live 25 years if you let them go. A lot of our contemporaries plant really densely, So they'll put them on 18-inch drip emitters. We go out to 36 inches. We don't get as much density, but we grow our plants bigger and they're happier. They're healthier plants. A lot of the folks, and you know, Driscoll's is a good example. They'll put plants in the ground and then they'll remove them. And you know, 5 years, maybe 3 years, maybe with their raspberries, it's every 18 months because they think they get more yield out of it, and it's all that's fine. But we're as interested in the health of the environment as we are in the blueberry bushes. So we find this happy medium so that it meets our vision and got really good berries, just don't have them that densely packed in together.
It gives more room for the people to
Yeah,
bring around when
more,
we're doing the
more
U-pick.
pickers. Yeah, that too.
I'm just curious too, how do you handle pest control issues, or do you have pest issues with the blueberries, with the public?
We are happy to say that we don't have very many pest issues. We
Mm.
have boring beetles on
Mhm.
occasion, but we haven't had any of the problems that are known in blueberry bushes in particular. We've had spider mites, we've had red spotted mites, but we've actually had those in the raspberry fields. So we
Mhm.
moved the raspberry fields back, so they're back downwind of
Right.
where they would come in because they're airborne. And since the spider mites and the red spotted mites don't really care for blueberries, you got quite a few acres of blueberries from the upwind side to the raspberry side. So as soon as we moved them, we lost that problem too. So part of the issue part of the reason that we've been able to handle the issue, we don't use sprays, we don't use pesticides, we use a combination of worm castings
Mm.
and plant-based compost in an extract that we spray and use to feed the plants. And the plants are more robust. They are more resistant to diseases. 100% natural. That makes a difference.
Wow, thank you. It's interesting.
If you want to come out, I'll give you a tour. It is really fun.
May.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pick the berries.
Yeah.
One more question, since we're talking about berries. Do you know how much fruit you can get per acre? Like, is it maybe a ton, maybe pounds of fruit?
It depends on how many plants you have on the acre. You can get up to 7 pounds of berries per mature plant. So if you've got, for example, some of our fields, our blocks are maybe 1,400, between 1,400 and 1,500 plants. So you multiply that by 7, you get an idea how many pounds you get, then you get your tonnage out of that. U-pick's a little bit different though when you're doing the math, because U-pickers are not efficient pickers. So you have losses that you take into consideration. You can't just say, well, I got 1,400 plants on the acre, I get 7 pounds per plant because these guys are 7 years old. That's my number. It doesn't work that way with the U-pick. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Mr. Seaman? Nope. Okay, thank you. Yep, we're gonna, thank you very much. If
Thank
you.
I
you
appreciate
can-
your courtesy.
Yeah, thank you. So what I heard is perhaps some changes to the map for clarification on that 2-acre envelope. Do we want to leave that as a contingency or have Mr. Seaman come back with a more clear map? Okay,
I think we're gonna have the
okay.
planner verify.
Yeah, planner verification. Okay, very good.
Yeah, and so, I mean, obviously, we're kind of focused on what our realm is with Ag Preserve, and there's other things that the planner will work out on the
Mhm.
application as far as the zoning ordinance requirements, but in terms of the big picture ones. And yes, I was pleased that they do have the cattle operation as well, because I know we've seen over recent years and Royce has probably seen that as well. A lot of the larger cattle ranches are not running cattle anymore. And so kind of puts for Uniform Rules in a precarious position in terms of what's the qualifying agriculture. But I'm glad they're doing a combination of both the historic cattle grazing and the more, modern crops with the blueberries. So I would make a motion that we find the request for the farm stay consistent with the Uniform Rules.
And
Right.
can we hold that for a moment?
Yes.
On the floor? I just, since it's a brand new ordinance, something that's new in our uniform rules, I just wanted to kind of go down the 2-5, the farm stay section, if that's possible. And just kind of make sure we have our findings in order and we're all in agreement. The first one, 2-5, A states that, that the farm stay is located on as part of a ranch operation that's principally used for commercial ag, and that the farm stay, 1, does not constitute the principal land use of the premises, and 2, is beneficial inherently related to the farm or ranch operation. I felt like that was definitely, we could make that finding. B is that the farm stay operation is located on a premises of 40 acres or greater, and this is a non-prime contract, so that checks the box. C is the farm stay shall comply with applicable regulations within the county zoning ordinance, and hearing from David, sounds like it is. You went through the different, the planner will assure that, as well as the application process, or continues down the processing route. D, in order to preserve productive ag land, that any development, minimizes intrusion, and from what I could tell, it's just existing infrastructure. There's no change in any additional structures or anything like that. So I don't see any issue with D. And lastly, that the farm stay is consistent with compatibility guidelines and will not significantly compromise long-term agriculture, either or natural resources on the premises or any adjacent properties or other nearby properties. And I think those are all good findings, so.
Yeah, thank you for going over those. So yeah, sort of the finding that the request for the farm stay is consistent with the Uniform Rules, and particularly Rule 2-5, as we just had covered, and contingent upon the planner verifying a site plan that depicts the 2-acre envelope, which would be inclusive of the residential structures and farm stay development areas, and appropriately label the farm stay structures and any outdoor areas for farm stay specific use and activities. That's the only verification.
Mhm.
And that we find, contract 68 AP 022 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
Second that motion.
We'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye.
And the vote carries 5-0.
Hey, very good. Thank you. I think we might see more of those ag enterprise ordinance applications, so I'm good we were able to go through that process. Okay, this brings us to item number, relabeled item number 2, which is now item number 3. That's the APAC Temporary Ad Hoc Subcommittee and presentation to the Board of Supervisors. I included in the packet a revised PowerPoint, if we could bring that up. And we had our last meeting, it was a special meeting held on February 28th. And committee members, mostly what we discussed was any additional notes to the presentation, and I included those. I believe what I put in there was a PDF for y'all, so you may not have seen the notes, but I can bring that back next time. But I did want to show that I did make some minor changes to the slides and pull those up notes. There's one slide that was on the financial impacts to, or it was how a potential cost to the county in having contracts get them back into compliance or to non-renew some contracts. There was I think 5 of them that had gone to the board in October, and that was that's what precipitated our overview that we're going to be doing at the board coming up in May. And that's another thing is the hearing date has changed from April to May 6th, and I wanted to make sure that that date is a date that works for all committee members and council, that confirm that that's a good date for all of us. Works for me. Wasn't sure about other committee members. Okay. So could we forward a little bit to keep going slides? What I added here, last bullet on acres of ag zone land under contract, I wrote relatively stable. That was one addition from the last version of this. And I think one thing that we might add, I hadn't gotten a chance to do yet, was communicate with you, Sergio, and maybe make that legend a little bit bigger in the map. And kind of hard to read right now.
I can ask our mapping department.
Very good, thank you. And yes,
I was just, sorry, thinking of a back pocket data that
Hmm?
may not come up, but maybe if we break out how many acres of ag preserve contracts by supervisorial district. I was thinking more, Supervisor Lee, since he's new,
yes.
he may be interested in, Carpinteria area and his district. So I don't know if that's, Brett might be able to do that.
I think that's very easy to do.
We don't have, and we don't have to show it necessarily on the slide or legend, but maybe just have it as back pocket.
Yes. Okay. And
You're thinking of sending that to Brett Jones?
No. Brett, or I was thinking our
Brett
Brett
Bryan.
Bryan in P&D GIS mapping, he could easily probably have both of those layers, the supervisorial layer and the ag preserve, and then break out how many acres of contracts are in each.
okay, thank you, David, for that suggestion. And I think the other change really was under slide number 6. Well, right there. There was some discussion in the previous slide on that that second portion, landowner agrees to, that assume the contract if land is sold. I think we had different language that was a little bit maybe confusing, or it was in the wrong orientation, didn't really flow well. So I just pulled it out as a second bullet point. Just assume the contract if the land is sold. And we went back to the language of assuming the contract, because I think we had it in quotes and then we were using other language, but we went back to assume contract if land is sold, so. Okay. And yes, any comments on that?
Do we want to say contracted land or contract? Assume the contract if the contract, well, I guess the contract isn't being sold, I guess what they're buying. Never mind, I think it's fine. I was just thinking contracted land, maybe.
Okay. All right, let's see, and moving on to, I think the next one is keep going. There's one that has the financial data. Oh, let's take a look real quick. I'm sorry, at number 14, slide 14, keep going, keep going. That one right there, yes. So, I believe I got this right. So I have I put some asterisks for clarification that because there was only there were only 5 board letters that went before the board in October, so that there's not any confusion. I put asterisk near those 3 there, 1 asterisk indicating that it was, I could say combined, or I put compiled, but they were all combined into 1 board letter. And then the 2 asterisks indicates 4 separate landowners. And the reason I think I put that in there is because it does affect when we do just for clarification, I don't know if I should put that in there or not, if it causes more confusion. The reason I put that in there is because it is more information that's added to the next slide, because there's actually a lot more parcels involved and landowners involved than initially appears. So I don't know if that causes more confusion to the board, or if anyone recommends I remove that. It's important or not. But can we look at, before you answer that question, perhaps let's look at the next slide. All right. Oh. This slide is the newer slide, and we had talked about it together when we'd met. And what I did is I put together a spreadsheet to review. Let me see if I get this, pull my spreadsheet up, explains it on this cost. And sort of what we talked about was there was a suggestion from, I think it was the planning director, if I recall. She was saying she suggested something that would give the board some level of understanding of the costs associated to the county with regards to when we do a non-renewal for cases. So when we're trying to enforce something, how much does that cost the county to get the contracts, quote unquote, back into compliance? So for us, our main tool is non-renewal. So it seemed like the easiest way to handle that, rather than look at all the cases across the board, we just kind of went back to those cases that were referred to in the previous slide. And what we did, and correct me if this isn't what your recollection was, but what I went through was the cost of each member on the committee. I obtained either your hourly rate for your department or your agency, because in the case of Royce, he's not with the county. But we determined what that was at fully loaded rate, and assumed that it would be probably at least 4 different meetings to non-renewal contract for county initiated non-renewal, and we roughly half an hour per visit or per meeting. So that works out to be 2 hours. I added, I think I have to look, but I think it's 2 additional hours for you, whatever you had sent me, Alex, for the surveyor for, yep, the legal description. And then I added on additional time for myself for the letter writing process, and as well as for Sergio's time spent on just fact finding and his work as assessor. And then also I added in that 20,000, so that totaled up to 30,000. I also included county council and Teresa's time as well, and thank you for that information. I obtained the planning costs from the board letters themselves. That was already included, so those were just totaled up for all those cases. And then the annual tax benefit is the amount that was for 1 year of, we thought that, because it takes approximately a year to go through the process from when we first find the noncompliance through the different meetings and the letter writing and the public input process. So it takes roughly a year. So that's a total of all those contracts. That's their annual benefit. And the total was about 81,775.
Contract holders carried over as a benefit, even though
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a loss.
Yes.
Right.
So Stephanie, on the Remind me again how many, so for the 30,000, I was just trying to think of if we were kind of equating those to an average per contract, average cost. Is that like,
Yeah.
we're talking about 6 non-renewals? I forget how many were the examples.
Yeah, it's, let me pull it up. I think it's, yeah, it's 7. Yeah, Sergi and I went through that because, some of these, although there was one board letter that had multiple contracts associated, they were just, I think, forgot the language in the board letter, but it was something they were combined for some reason. Yeah,
So there's some efficiencies, some cost.
yes. Yes, that's true. Any discussion or questions about that? I think we'll get some.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was the 30,000 seemed to be pretty high, but once you start parsing it out, it just gets additive. 5 different individuals having some touch and cost to it. I guess,
Yeah.
And then for all of those 7 contracts.
And it's actually, they were, to be clear, there's actually 9 because we had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that one of them, the 76 AP 069, actually consisted of 4 different landowners. So we had to send out 4 different letters. We discussed it in 4 different, meetings, or it was agendized 4 different times. So that kind of goes back to my previous slide. That is why I put that asterisk in to explain that consisted of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, I actually have 9, and Sergio and we went through that.
Is it one of them like a non-contract? It was just like an original. I think there was one that was the Lost Boys. Excuse me, beg your pardon. I think there was one of the contract numbers that was listed. It wasn't really an active contract. I think it was like the original contract. I don't have.
Is that the 76 AP 069? And then we had, that was actually
That was-
broken up into Blue Sky, and Torres, Woodward, and Aguila. Yeah, so, I have the spreadsheet right here if it helps to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was kind of thinking, and maybe, might be one of those back pocket. On average, if there's a cost to APAC, $3,000, $5,000 process it, or planning for $2,000 to $3,000. I mean, I don't know if they're helpful or easier. to
No,
understand.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is to break it down by per contract.
If you.
I think that
kinda
makes sense.
characterize it, just add,
Yes, no,
because there's
good point.
complexity, but in general,
Yeah.
maybe that may be a different way that easier sometimes.
Yes, agreed. So I could take the 81,000 and say roughly, so if you divided that by 9, this is how much it would be. So, okay.
Certainly at least the first two rows, because I think those are operational costs. I mean, the benefit may be much higher.
Yeah,
variable,
very
so-
true.
so maybe APAC cost of processes is generally going to be like $3,000 to $5,000 per, and then for planning to take it from contract to the board for non-renewal is generally going to be.
So what I could do is add on another column to the right of this. So where I could add in some language that says costs for whatever 9 contracts, and then break it out for those first 2 rows on just maybe cost per contract,
Or just
approximate.
as part of your script.
Yeah,
You just want to frame it.
don't do that? Okay. Okay, I'll put it in my notes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're saying to just break down when I talk about it, say the estimated APAC costs are, and give that number, but don't give the,
Or you can add together APAC and planning.
Yeah. yeah, but don't give an average for the annual benefit's too difficult of a,
And the annual tax benefit, perhaps,
it's variable and,
let's say in this case, yes, lost. tax credit.
Yeah, it's the benefit that they continue to receive while in processing the non-renewal.
okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that input. Any other comments on the slide? Okay. I wanted to also just give you an update on a couple of things regarding, I don't think we met since our special meeting, that it's both Sergio and I are on the subcommittee. But I think just wanted to let you know, so if the board letter is, we're still waiting on one input from one additional department before it goes to the CEO's office. And then hopefully they won't have too many comments, and that'll get docketed. And when it does, I'll give everybody copies of that as well as the PowerPoint. And I'd like to maybe schedule maybe like a dry run with the three department leads on this. So with the planning director and also Jose Chang, our commissioner, and Mr. Daly from the assessor's office, if that's possible, do a dry run. Get a thumbs up. And also, I think as a committee, we could do it at this juncture today, or we could do it at the next meeting, because I think we have one more meeting at least before the, hopefully it doesn't continue past the May 6th, I think it is the next, next is the current date for this to go to the board. I think it would be good for the committee to go through, think through, I think we will likely get questions of what can the committee do to improve compliance or improve maybe outreach education to landowners, or what are some ideas that we may have, so that we think those through before we present. I think we're going to get those questions. What can we do? And I did reach out to Sergio and asked, maybe this got brought up at one of our meetings. Because I was looking through that previous email from the Ventura County, who had because they had actually amended their uniform rules to allow the assessor to independently take an action to go forward with a non-renewal. So I was curious how that's, because I believe that was in 2022, what the email was. I'm curious how that's going, and if you've had a chance to reach out to them or find out maybe what they're seeing better compliance as a result of that.
Well, I can tell you, they are seeing better compliance. Their compliance rate did go up significantly, and they're very happy. But that's as far as I could get. I think I think bottom line is, again, they're very happy with the way it's going. The assessor's offices. I don't have much other information from like the rest, like the APAC or anything like that. But I think, like you said, the assessor's office, they're the ones that independently puts people in non-renewal, and they actually run some hearings to hear protests. And I think this is all done in, by the assessor.
So it doesn't actually go to the board,
Not
Board of Supervisors.
not at the beginning, no. I don't know exactly what happens after the protest hearing is held. If, for example, I would assume that if a protest is allowed and they ruled that, okay, yeah, we're going to give you another chance. I think the assessor just independently again puts them back into compliance. I don't know exactly what happens if they find that, no, you don't have a case, your protest is denied. I guess it just remains in non-renewal. I would assume that's where that, I don't know that it goes back to the APAC. So what I did, another thing I found out is that Ventura County, their APAC committee is made up of just individual ranchers. They don't have anybody from county departments on the committee. I think only the Ag Commissioner's office is the one that provides assistance to the committee, administration to the committee. So it's like an independent committee outside of county departments. And I think it's the same thing in San Luis Obispo. I don't know, Royce.
San Luis, the Public Works Department determines eligibility. Then they bring it to the Ag Preserve Review Committee, which has 14 members on it of all the industry, to review, to say their vote, whether they agree or not. So basically, it's the Public Works Department that does all the behind-the-scenes work,
Public Works, not planning?
planning, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yes.
But Royce, do they also review just development applications on contracted land, like, farms or things, or they're just doing new contracts?
Contract.
Yeah, so I think it's very specialized.
And they have, do they also have the Ag Committee members on there as well, or is it strictly agencies or departments?
The 14.
On the 14 members, though?
To my knowledge, and I've served on that committee, all we do is say whether we agree with what the planning department has said.
And the membership's comprised of only county?
Then
Oh, okay. So
other-
it's other,
AAC kind
Farm-
of.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, they're a combination of kind of our Ag Advisory Committee and Ag Preserve Advisory Committee. I see. Okay. Yeah, I did attend one of those or two of those meetings, and I have attended years ago one of the Ventura meetings. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, it might be good follow, because when I was reading kind of the role of the assessor for Ventura County, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, they identify a non-complier who hasn't responded with their annual survey and provide them notice that they're going to non-renewal. They have provided an opportunity unless they receive a protest. Then on a certain day, if they haven't received that protest, they take action to non-renew themselves directly, and they would
Yeah.
record that.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the questions, that's why I was thinking, because Alex was saying the surveyor, you require, for the ones that planning and development takes to the board, you prepare a legal description of each of those contracts. I wonder if if they have that built into their process to non-renewal, or it's just the assessor, it says whatever the owner, whatever the APNs are for this parcel, they're recording a non-renewal, and I don't know if they go through the step of a legal description.
I think it all has to be set up under the uniform rules. They did, their Ventura County Board of Supervisors amended their uniform rules to allow this process to go the way it's going, with the assessor having the authority to put people in non-renewal and to run these protest hearings. So I don't know how it's set up, I guess what I'm trying to say. It's
To look into their regulation, perhaps they set it up as dealing only with the assessor's parcels, while in our case, uniform rules kind of span the planning, subdivision, development part, or /parcel validity. So we are always looking at both the subdivision development compliance that are embedded in uniform rules plus the rest.
So in my opinion, I think it's premature to go in that direction and maybe even suggest that. I don't want to suggest that at at this meeting with the Board of Supervisors. I want, if the Board of Supervisors want to give us that directive they probably will say, like Stephanie mentioned, they'll probably have questions as to how can we improve compliance, or how can we monitor compliance and enforcement. I think that's when we actually then look into all of these options. And, I'm sure there's other counties that are going through the same problem, maybe not exactly the same, but when we get the directive is, I think, when we go into looking and doing the research and seeing what other counties, not just Ventura counties, I guess my point, and then come back with more.
Yes, and to clarify, when I was making the suggestion of just that, I think we will get those questions. I agree, this is an overview, and that it'll be an interesting discussion, because it may, we only allowed 20 minutes for it, really. There'll be maybe some questions, maybe there'll be very direct, hey, you need to look into this. And I think that would be, give us more time to, I was just making suggestion that we just consider how we might respond, because rather than just have nothing to say, but there are certainly some things we could look at. How do other counties do it? This is not it's a statewide program. How there's maybe some other outreach outreach and education opportunities. I was looking to see it. Maybe there's other counties that do some kind of annual not noticing, but maybe annual notification to landowners, or an opportunity for maybe FAQs on a website. There's all kinds of things we could be doing to, educate our landowners who are in this program, because we get quite a few questions from them. And I also wanted to mention that I don't know if you're aware, there's a group called the Central Coast Land Use Roundtable. And in that group, over the years, they've been around for 10 or 15 years. And they meet, I think, quarterly, and they always have some Williamson Act issues they bring to the table. And I brought up just what are other counties doing for outreach education to landowners. So we'll have that on the agenda as just to see what other people are doing, what other counties.
Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe, I think if the meeting has been pushed to May, I think we may have a little time to maybe conduct a quick survey.
Mhm.
I know Solano County, this was on last month's agenda.
Yeah,
They were doing a survey. Perhaps, a suggestion would be to do a survey of other counties and see how their APAC is monitoring and enforcing
mhm.
the rules.
Yeah, and Solano had hired a third party to do that.
Right.
So that would take some money, but if
And-
you're thinking that level.
And we just recently, the assessors, the chief assessors meet on a quarterly basis too. I don't know if Michael Daly, our chief assessor, you attended, right, Mike? I don't know if there was any discussion, but. Okay.
Any other thoughts from committee members on this?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think sounds like we're gonna just continue this item to the April, so we have the spot available to have those conversations,
Mhm.
and we can then, in general, talk about at least some options. And I don't know, and if we had gotten the information from Ventura, but in terms of sort of like what was their response rate prior to starting this that triggered the need to be more of a hammer. And then now what it sounds like it's moving up. And so it'd be maybe good to kind of find at least where is it now. And as Sergio was alluding to, maybe that's, if the board gives us some direction, that might be sort of the second approach, and maybe there's an interim one that, we have an outreach strategy with the AAC and all the member organizations to essentially inform, different ways to inform, because not all the landowners are part of these organizations, but
That's a great way to do it.
but that could be a starting point to continually, that the importance and the need for it and the potential loss of their benefit that they need, the more that we could educate and inform ahead of time, we hopefully wouldn't have to then go to that more, definitive process like Ventura did. Because I remember Mark Lloyd, maybe it was last year he was here, he was on a representing one of the contracts on a project and was glad that we haven't moved, Santa Barbara County hadn't moved to that point because landowners in Ventura I think it's kind of, they've changed their habits because now they know there's consequences. And that's one way to move the needle, but maybe there's some, different proactive outreach with the AAC organizations and landowners initially.
Any other thoughts on that? I think we should continue this since we have the little more time than we initially thought, but I think just kind of dialing down some of those potential directives from the board and how best to respond. And I'm not saying we necessarily have to have I don't even think it's really our role to come up with new ways for the county to spend money. But I think it's just have some sort of, get the committee thinking a little bit about that, because I think it's going to come up.
About the rate, the response rate, I did get some information from Ventura County. So they were down to 69% in 2017. And in 2018, they implemented some guidelines to send a second request letter, and that made the response rate go up a little because they were now sending second request letters that went from 69 to 80, about 80%. And then in 2020, that's when they implemented the guidelines to non-renew people. In 2021, the rate was at 86%, 22, 89%, and then 89% in 23. And last year they were at 91%. So yeah, they provided some of this information. So we are, I think the last info I shared from last year, I think we were at like 64%. So we are even lower than when they started, when they saw that they needed to do something. Yeah, like I said, I think they're very happy with their response rate now and the way it's going.
And that over time reduces.
You're also getting maybe more accurate assessments because
Correct.
Great, good discussion. We'll carry this on for the next meeting if we can. I think we have additional time. Double checking on the date, May 6th. Can we all make it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. So with that, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't ask this question. Is there anybody here today who'd like to speak on this item from the public?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, thank you. And yes, make a motion to continue this item to the April meeting.
Second.
We'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey. Alex. And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And the vote carries to continue the item to the April 10th meeting.
Thank you. We're now on to our last item here. I'm just putting together my information. Hang on momentarily. Okay, very good. So this is our last item today, and we discussed it a little bit at the last meeting, letting you know I was going to be putting it on the agenda. But this is item number, yes, 5. This is the APAC chair. And I wanted to just, I thought this was a good opportunity to bring this up to the committee and just kind of give you a little background and discuss a little bit about a piece of information I included in the packet I thought might be helpful for committee members to discuss this. And what I did is I went through all the different duties I do as a chair, and I'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a moment. But I did want to thank the committee for just being open to discussing the change potentially, and wanted to just kind of, I really appreciate that our committee has always been kind of forward thinking. We always try to improve our processes. And I think this is just, I think of it as just another one, another process or another a way that we carry on business that maybe we need to reconsider and take a look at. We have been running the committee since it's been many, many years, since the actually 1967. And it's always been the Agricultural Commissioner's Office that has, as I know of, has chaired the committee. And it's a monthly meeting. And we are glad to do so. But as we, just continue as in our departments, resources become tight, and we need to kind of think through what's best for each department. And it's come up internally in our office, a discussion between our Ag Commissioner's Office, as well as I know the planning director had a discussion about looking at maybe shifting the chair role from the ag department to perhaps maybe another department or on a rotational basis. And when that was discussed, I think it was even talked about at the CEO level, the direction was to bring it to the committee and have the committee discuss and see what the committee could work out and what might come next for the chairship. So with that, I wanted to put together just a memo to committee members. And I think just on the surface, it's just looking at different responsibilities in any committee. It's, I think, a healthy thing to look at balance, to look at distribution, and kind of shared responsibilities. I think it's healthy to reconsider how we do things after many, many years. And so with that, I put together some duties. I broke them out by monthly responsibilities, quarterly responsibilities, and then annual. And then some are just an as-needed basis. because they don't come up that frequently, but they still come up, and they are, I think it's important just so everyone's aware of what the chair may do. I'm sure you all know, but just kind of putting on a paper is helpful. Some of these duties would be normally spent even if you're on the committee and not chairing, and I recognize that. But I put them on there still. And at the very end, I did put together a list. I ran like a query in, I think it was in Fin, to do a labor summary and find out, just I code my time a certain way in APAC. So I put just the total hours I spent in the 4 years I've been doing this, and I thought that might be helpful. That's helped inform me on how many hours I spend on the different responsibilities. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to review it, but that might be helpful as a place to start. So we can discuss as a committee, and I can also open this for public comment, see if there's anybody here today who'd like to speak on this item.
Would that include?
Michael, yeah, Michael, if you'd like to come up and speak to this item. Yeah.
I guess I'm a member of the public, but I'll be here in my official capacity. So I'm Michael Daly. I'm the Chief Deputy Assessor. I was kind of hoping to hear your guys' comments first, maybe, see how you all feel about this, but I'll just go ahead and, I guess, set a stage, at least from the assessor's standpoint. I totally understand. I'm the chair of the retirement board, so I know what it's like to be a chair of a board. I haven't been the chair that long, but I know it takes a lot more work than the other board members, because you're kind of in the driver's seat on a lot of stuff, and the responsibility is a different level. So understanding that and the time commitment it takes, definitely appreciative of that and the ag commissioner's role in so many decades of doing that. So the assessor's opposed to being in that seat. I'm here on behalf of Joe Holland, and our office is not comfortable being put in the position of the chair of this committee. We're certainly not opposed to the committee deciding to rotate chairs or put another department in the chair seat. We just don't want it to be ours, and we don't want to be included in that rotation if you do decide that. And just to give a little bit of context, I think there's a level of discomfort being in that position. We're currently comfortable enough in the participatory role we play on the committee, and I could even see today the symbiotic relationship that and the collegiality of your committee that we have, and we're comfortable there. But to go any further, putting our representative in the chair seat is just it's not so much about the time as much as the optics. And going back to the previous item, if I may, particularly at this time with the inquiries from the board, the considerations you're all taking about compliance and the considerations they'll be taking pretty soon about compliance, we do not want to be out in front of that. We are a reactionary agency. We are very much in the position of kind of, looking at, we're really focused on what is the value and what are we assessing and how are we assessing things. We don't necessarily want to be too out in front of making decisions about, particularly with ag properties, whether they're in or out of ag preserve or not. But of course, happy to participate with the committee as we have. So I'll just go back to that item real quick. And just as an example, those questionnaires, that any, and I know you guys had mentioned the other county assessors being in the role or having authority to put people in noncompliance. It's something our assessor is not interested in having that authority. If they did, I think that we'd want that to be a conversation that Joe Holland would have with the board and the CEO. And, but ultimately, if we are, if the assessor is told, we're going to use your, questionnaires or some suggestion as to, our role in that, we're much more comfortable being told, and than being in the decision making, about that, that process. So, I guess I'm trying to make my point, I suppose, but, ultimately for this item, we're just, we'll leave it to Sergio. I wanted to come and make a comment on his, for the office because, I know he does enjoy working with you all, and, I hate to put him in the position of saying no, alone. So it's just our department doesn't want to be in the chair seat. So I'll just leave it at that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just to emphasize, I mean, just to repeat what Michael just said, we are so different because our department head is an elected official, and being on the front lines of this is just a little uncomfortable. But yeah, I think we are the only department head on this committee that is an elected official. And that's what makes us different. I guess it's different.
Yeah, and thank you, Michael, for being here. I appreciate it. I just had a follow-up question, and I was, kind of thinking of like alternative scenarios that I'll talk about later, but I mean, understand the position on being in the chair position. I'm assuming that this discussion, we'd also probably want to talk about the process for a vice chair and how that would occur. One option for the vice chair is more just procedural, that in the case that the chair isn't here, they would just run the meeting. And so one option is for those departments that have some heartache or concern about being in the chair position, would you be okay if the function of the vice chair position was really just that, running the meeting in case the chair isn't there?
That's a good question. I know Sergio, enjoys, coming to these and being a part of the committee. And I'd imagine that, and not just him, anybody that we would have come serve on the committee would be willing to, step in somebody's absence. I suppose if the role is just to help facilitate running the meeting and it's limited to that, I don't think we object to that. But at the same time, still trying to, we're very cautious about participating in a degree more than we are currently. So vice chair might be a little too close to the.
I just throw that out as something to consider. We're not going to obviously make any decision, but.
Sure. But no, not as opposed, but still, it's I don't know if it's all degrees. That's just another degree. But certainly, again, happy to do our part in the way we can that we are currently. Just not. It's a little optically too much to be put in chair positions on this committee. So that's all.
No, I thank you for coming today and supporting Sergio and just getting your frank response.
Thank you. Yeah, I tried to just cut the check. I do want to say we really do appreciate all that you do, and particularly I know you've been handed. I could see why this may have come up. You got handed a task from the board that adds more time. That's a lot more of your time that you've had to put in. And so we recognize that, appreciate that. And we are trying to do what we can to provide the information you need and to try to assist in any way we can. And we will definitely be at the board meeting in May to support you all, and just appreciate everybody's work on this committee.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
And yes, Stephanie, I appreciate you pulling together all the information, in terms of kind of the things that you do and I'm glad you mentioned, because, yeah, I think there's a lot of these hours that you would be doing even if you weren't the chair. And I think similarly, all of our members, I mean, there's hours that, each of us could probably calculate in terms of the support, monthly and kind of one-off things that, I think one of the, maybe on the previous meeting, one of the points you also had raised that I think is fair to restate is that from the Ag Commissioner's budget, it's mostly cost recovery. And so the Ag Commissioner doesn't have general fund money that supports your work.
Thank you, David, for bringing that up. One of the things, the Ag Commissioner's Office is kind of an interesting, the way fiscally how we work. We don't get a lot of general fund money. Most of our money is from the state. And those monies are determined on an annual basis. And it is kind of the amount of money we get from the state is based on how much money we spent in the certain programs, the agricultural programs, the prior year. So the less time we spend in the programs that are the state mandates, then the less money we get. So it's kind of a downward spiral, or it could go the other way, where if we spend more money in the ag programs, we'll get more money the following year. So it's really a unique funding arrangement. And this APAC committee and the time spent in this program, we don't get, that's not considered an ag program. So it's like time away from other programs that we manage. So it becomes a fiscal issue for us. I try and keep my time to a minimum, but I think it's an important job, and we all want someone here who has integrity and is being as efficient as possible. But yeah, that is part of the aspect of it as well.
Should I jump in?
Yes, go ahead.
So I did mention this to my director as a topic that will be on the agenda, but I haven't discussed details or any kind of plans or recommendations. So again, the county surveyor is part of the public works. We do have certain responsibilities, and we do get some general fund money. I just came up with probably $200 would be more than 10% of my time in a year, which kind of is difficult to find the time to add this into that's my opinion. So I would definitely need to work a lot of or delegate some functions, which again hits the matter of the budget, because our budget, surveyor's budget, is very independent and strict, does not overflow into any of the other bigger divisions in our department. So we are 5 people. So I'm kind of one of 5 people that I'm happy to be on the committee, but it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying no, but I'll have to discuss it with the director. I do think that there is a good reason for Ag Commissioner's Office to chair this committee, because of the most comprehensive knowledge of the agriculture. It probably would be a little bit difficult for anyone else except for perhaps planning and development staff to chair the committee from that perspective. But, it's gonna take much more time for me to get into the groove, to learn the ropes and be, know how to manage these items and the agendas for writing the letters and preparing. It's gonna require a lot of help and support from the committee if we are not, if we are chairing from, at least from my perspective. I don't know if any other members would have similar difficulties. But yeah, those are kind of my points for now.
I did bring this up with my director. She had a conversation with the ag commissioner. The email I got back is that cooperative extension should not be the chair. It should be someone in the department or a department in the county. So I didn't pursue it anymore after that.
Yeah, I don't know how other committee members feel about that, but to me, my suggestion was in terms of, I wrote it on the, suggested that the county staff, it rotates among county staff. To me, UC Cooperative Extension, it would just be an undue burden on them because they're outside the county system. Interesting you say that, Alex, that you felt the commissioners in an ag commissioner's office is in a unique role to be the chair. I see it not much myself, but our department sees it a little bit differently. Most of what the ag department does is really nothing to do with land use, and this is a very unique program with that respect. There's seems like a lot of overlap with planning, and I see with the assessor, because it is about ultimately a tax benefit that the landowners get. So it's not like this work overlaps into other work that I do, and there's, efficiency of having two programs overlap. This is very unique, and really there's very few people that kind of understand the program in the department, so we get a lot of the questions. But one of the things I wanted to clarify was there is no statement that we could find either in the Uniform Rules or the Williamson Act or the original minute order that created the committee that states that it is the Ag Commissioner's office. So I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't make any reference that I could find. So
If we were a common law marriage, since you've been in the position, the ag commissioners,
Yeah.
for decades.
And Teresa's pulling up the original minute order that is from at the very top there, Teresa. It has the 1967. Yep. And those are, if you scroll down, I got that from the recorder's office. So they dissolved the interim committee and they.
There's the Division of Intergovernmental Services. I like that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but those are the representative members. Mm-hmm.
Is that in our
Yeah.
box?
No, I just pulled it up yesterday, and so, yeah,
Or if you could maybe put it
I
in
will.
Dr. Senate. Yeah, I just
Absolutely.
have that.
Absolutely.
And the
Mm-hmm.
county council was one of a voting member.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We could change that.
Yeah. We can,
Yeah.
we can bring him back.
Yeah.
There's more chairs here.
Yeah. And it's, being on the committee and chairing a committee is definitely something that our department has enjoyed. I enjoy doing it. It's something that's really, I feel like, has its challenges, but it is a really important program for the ag industry. As far as like our role, we see our role as kind of equal in that we can provide input on these contracts in terms, kind of like how Royce does, just sort of like we have that background, that understanding. some of the operators we know just from the work we do in our department. But for the administrative part of it, the planning aspects, the consistency with the rules, it's really is an administrative type of a position. And David pointed out and wanted to underscore that and remind folks that in that MOU, if you hadn't had time to look at it, we can, discuss this again at the next meeting, or we can take a motion today. But that memo does say that it gives a layout of what the roles and duties are, but some of those you would be doing anyways as a committee member, especially at the top, the monthly ones. But it is the letter writing, the questions, the inquiries, the board questions that you get, and agenda management, minutes. And could you pull up that for just a minute, the APAC memo I sent? Yeah, it's like we all prepare for the monthly meetings. I estimated that under that fourth bullet. And respond to inquiries that can really vary on kinds of questions that you get. I don't know how many other members, sure they get questions as well from landowners. But yeah, preparing draft minutes, draft agendas. David assists with that as well. I mentioned that Central Coast Roundtable group that we participate in. Some were point of contact. This is some minor other, as duties as required, the points of contact for the Form 700, the conflict of interest form. We do some annual training with the planners. And then scroll down a little bit, Teresa, if you don't mind. The as needed duties, composing the letters, and those we send to council for review. Those are typically kind of form letters. You just need to be careful that you're making sure the information is accurate and timely. And then we send them, certified mail, return receipt requested, so have to sign for it. Same with the 60-day letters. We do, I think probably one of the more time consuming is any input on ordinances, things like that, just the special meetings, the coordination, the understanding what the issues are, and presenting it to the committee. Any subcommittees that we've had, usually the chair is on that, either if it's from something like we're doing now for a presentation to the board, or if it's something that we're going to be like a upcoming ordinance amendment, like I'd said, or even just like we were discussing, I think it was a couple years ago, we're trying to improve the recordation of landowner initiated non-renewals. So we were doing a subcommittee on that. So usually you're involved with some of those. Yeah, and everything too, like web pages and things, and reviewing environmental documents. Sometimes I look at them from just ag perspective, responsible agency review on CEQA documents, but also I look at it from the APAC perspective. Okay. So, anybody prepared to make a motion or?
Oh, I need to provide my.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
I guess the timing, and appreciate Michael being here, and just, all of us have probably checked with our directors, and raised this issue, and just the presentation at the board is involving directors as well. And so I think I would suggest we don't take a definitive motion on this until after the board's hearing, because it may provide additional context on how they see it. They may want to be more proactive, or they may also want some information from the committee and options or things like that we would have to then work with departments. And so I think it's not too far off. And so at least I think it would just provide additional framing at the higher levels that the individual department heads are involved in. Particularly just even, on the previous discussion, as Michael was saying, is, that if the board gives direction to the assessor's office to be more proactive or come up with options to be more proactive, then that's a conversation in of itself. And so that would just be my kind of the framing of timing. I think it probably would be best not to have a final motion on this till after that board hearing. And I agree that historically, the two departments that have been most involved in different ways and similar ways have been the Ag Commissioner's Office and Planning and Development. Well, I guess one of the questions I was going to ask you, Stephanie, so even in the concept of having some rotational chair, you still anticipate that in that rotation, Ag Commissioner would still be a chair at one of those rotations?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So some alternative scenarios could be focusing on a rotation between Ag Commissioner and Planning Development representatives. And then maybe, a vice chair, and if their main role was just to be running the meeting in case the chair wasn't there, then that potentially could be the other department representatives in filling that role if and when it happens. If we were to do a rotational, we could also think about, because some of these, like Alex had said, and I think Sergio too, is that getting up to speed on everything you do currently, you've done it for a while. And so there's going to be some learning curve. And then if we're on just a chairship for an annual chair, do we want to think of the chair being, every 2 years rotation? I mean, there may be some efficiencies if we think about doing that. And that could be in any scenario. Or even if it was just going to rotate the chair between Ag Commissioner and Planning and Development. Again, it could be like a 2-year rotation or 1 year, whatever. I think another thing that we can talk on our department, I mean, obviously, Teresa in our department provides and has provided hearing support for the committee. And, there's a cost for that. A lot of the administrative things that you do, Chair, one option is to reduce that cost and burden and time, and maybe Planning and Development, hearing support, working in conjunction with you, handle some of those, like sending out the 60-day letters or the certified mail, or some of those type of administrative things. I think that could be a conversation regardless, of how we deal with the chair, that we could talk about potentially. And so I think P&D isn't opposed to being a chair in a rotation. But I think it's the conversation of how that would happen.
Just to, I also want to repeat what Michael said about, I do enjoy doing all of this. I enjoy it. I like working with you, Stephanie, David, Alex, and Royce. One of the things I want to make clear is that if you, Stephanie, if you needed more help, I'm willing to help a little more with some of the items that you've listed, because it does, when you put it on this memo, it looks, there's a lot that you do, and I appreciate all the work that you do. One of the things I want to say is perhaps when the Board of Supervisors, when they see how much it costs, how much money it takes, perhaps they can come up with some other options. So maybe even funding a little more money. I mean, I don't know that I don't think they provide any funding for this committee. But maybe that's something that they should consider. They need to look at how much it takes. And then maybe one of the other options is to have them think about what other counties do, where I was mentioning Ventura County, they don't have any department representatives on their committee, on the APAC committee. It's all run by ranchers, people in the industry. So I'm not really suggesting that, but it's just, this is one way of thinking outside the box. Like, does it have to be run by us, by department representative? I don't know. So yeah, I agree. Maybe after the meeting with the Board of Supervisors, we will probably have a better understanding of maybe they'll have more questions, and then maybe there will be more discussion as to what it is that we do. We haven't, I think this is the first time we're meeting with the Board of Supervisors in a long time. I don't think I've ever, during the time I've been doing this, I don't think we've ever been to one of their meetings. And so I think we need to get closer to the Board of Supervisors, and maybe there's some changes that they may want to do once they understand what we do and they see how much time it takes to run this program. Who knows? Maybe they'll even suggest getting rid of the program in its entirety. I don't know. Anyway, that's my comment.
Well, I like your positive attitude, thinking perhaps they'll give us funding, especially after the budget hearings. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing, David, about the like potential, whatever happens with the rotation, it's still just maybe a reassessment and how things work. What's more efficient? You talked about different ways of handling things like letters, administrative duties. But that last, if you notice on that last page there is a change. Debbie Troop was the previous, Teresa, if you could scroll down to that last page. It shows that was the first year I took over being a chair was 219 hours, and then the following year it dropped down, and that was because of just more efficiency. Yeah, took a little time, but yeah. Debbie Troop was the previous person that was chairing it, and
there's probably, to add to this, I don't know how often it happens, but participation in the uniform rules amendments, basically.
yes,
I don't know if it is accounted for
Yeah.
these regular
Mhm.
meetings, but that's a
Yes.
significant amount of.
yes, and the Ag Enterprise Ordinance. Yeah, definitely. And this is something.
That committee members work on outside of the hours that we meet.
Mhm.
That's probably impact as well. So
Mhm.
it is, I don't know, I'd say it's probably $250,000 a year just for these meetings.
Mhm. Yeah. Um. Right.
It's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so what you said, I appreciate, Stephanie, and I'll probably clarify it a little bit. I see, I believe the county surveyor's role is very specific in this committee, to be helpful and advise on these issues of the legal boundary of the parcels. I don't think we have any other skills except the subdivision map act that we can bring to the committee, and we are very specialized in that. I agree with you that, probably Ag Commissioner's office doesn't overlap,
Mm.
in the committee's activities, but I think the comprehensive knowledge of of agriculture is probably helpful in a way because you deal with agriculture, right? So knowing it, similar to Royce or uh, planning probably has another set of, knowledge that is very helpful. But again, I do, think the surveyor has very specific expertise to bring to this committee. Although I do enjoy participate and discuss, and I grew up on a farm as well, so I know a little bit more of agriculture than a typical county surveyor would bring into the committee. But still, I think if you look at a typical county surveyor, I don't think they would be that comfortable chairing the committee. That's my personal opinion. Again, I know there is an administrative part of the committee. It's probably not hard to pick up on that,
Yeah.
but it would, if the county surveyor is chair of the committee, would need a lot of support from the other committee members, from the county council, from the planning department, hearing staff.
And yeah, I think that thank you for that, Alex. I think that we all have our own specialties to contribute. And I think that this committee is really not unlike any other committee in the county where a lot of committees do rotate their chairpersonship. Board of Architecture Review or other county or other just county committees do, and it's just a common thing. It evens things out. It gives different perspective. It gives a fresh, perspective. It also enables people for leadership training and leadership opportunities. And running a meeting is really an administrative process. It really is. And anybody that was to take on the new chairship, we would support you in that new role. And just for the record, from the Ag Commissioner's Office perspective, I appreciate what Mr. Daly had to say, and his that the Assessor's Office does not want to be in the limelight. However, from the Ag Department's perspective, it would be a fair thing to have all four committee members from the assessor, the surveyor, the planning department, and the ag department, all four sharing that rotational chairship.
The reason budgetary or?
It's budgetary and just, yeah, it's just mostly has to do with time and energy spent. And it's always been the ag department. Many years it was the commissioner, and then it became assistant, and then now it's deputy level. But it's, we have a new commissioner, and even the previous commissioner had concerns with it. It's been a long discussion in our office.
I remember the other committee that our office takes part in, Subdivision Development Review Committee. I think it's traditionally chaired by the planning department, and I don't think that there's any rotation there, David, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but
That's a projects.
It's not a board.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as far as your participation
Through the
in the other
ordinance, yeah.
departments, yeah, it's project coordination.
Mm-hmm.
It's
takes
it's
time
set
and-
in county chapter 21 is the committee. It is it's not a point, that's short, it's part of it.
Yeah.
Which I understand, it makes sense. again, there's that administrative part that anybody can do.
Yeah.
More or less knowledge in
Mm-hmm.
that. Again, I do like David's idea to continue this conversation so that we get enough time to discuss this with our internal.
Yes, I agree.
And yeah, we'll come back with, I'm not saying no, but, we'll come back and I might hear from my director saying no. or
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. So say at our June meeting, or it could even be our May meeting, since the board meeting is on the 6th. At whatever point, we may be ready to entertain a motion. Who are we making a motion to? Who are we for this recommendation to?
Well, I think the motion could be structured, just I make a motion to do whatever, rotate the chairship between person XYZ. Then that goes on record and that information goes forward to the different directors of these different county departments that represented, and then they take that next step. I was given direction to bring it to the committee. My understanding is from that point, then that information would go to the directors would then take that information to the assistant CEO.
Maybe recommendation to the representative department head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess just procedurally, another thing, I mean, like other planning commission or boards of architecture review, they typically have bylaws and.
Yes, we don't have
We don't
that.
have bylaws.
No.
and So at least that may
Precipitate that.
precipitate the need to have some basic bylaws that say we elect a chair and a vice chair on this cycle and this is whatever. So that might be part of what we eventually. lead
Yeah.
to doing.
Yeah, that was a previous comment from one of the county councils, is that we don't have any bylaws. Yeah. Maria Novat made that comment.
We might need to have an ad hoc committee to start working on those bylaws with the current chair.
And for just, I'd prefer at least if this item goes back to the next month, to at least gives Alex's department a chance to take a look and hear from, rather than just postpone it until after the, I don't know what the intentions were of other committee members, but I would like for it to go back next month. So at least get some input from the Public Works director. And then we can see whether we want to, what we want to do at that point. If it's wait until after or, yeah, or take a motion, because my director would like some action on it.
I mean, I'm not opposed to continuing, but at this point, I wouldn't want to make any type of motion until after the board hearing.
Any other thoughts?
Question.
Yeah.
Ventura County and San Luis County are so different in the way they operate their ag preserve program. Would there be any value to somehow get information from them as to why they do it the way they do? How it got that way? Because this is so different here. When I go to the two different ones, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought on that, Royce, would be, it really depends what the board's interested in,
Yeah.
in terms of what their focus is. If presumably, at least part of what we think they're interested in, one is understanding kind of what the program is and the uniform rules are, but then also sort of compliance and non-compliance, and that may also have the kind of the fiscal component to that in terms of revenue. But it might lead to conversations of operational, it's like, I mean, that was one of the things I was going to ask. I mean, you hadn't mentioned that was a request. The department heads provide, this is the cost from each of our departments each year for running this program. Um, But that might be something down the road, if that's what the board is interested in, that might be part of that conversation, is that, just, operationally, there's a cost to all of our departments, and, they may want us to come back with different ways, maybe in that, when we could look at what other jurisdictions are doing, or look at efficiencies in what we currently do, and so, but I would say, yeah, I think it's wait and see what the board is really interested in, because I'm sure there'll be follow-up research and collection of information and reporting back to the board on whatever they're interested in.
And one of the differences I learned with San Luis is the San Luis Planning Department, if it's still this way, they get a lot of just general fund money for their projects. And I believe this county is mostly still does billing on projects. So they operate differently. And so they might have a different way of presenting things. They seem like, I've seen their, at least when there was a prior chair, she would have them do a presentation, a PowerPoint. I went as far as to get their PowerPoint, their template to see if we could do something like that, but then that's additional cost for the planner, which would get carried on to the applicant. So that was actually one of the reasons, and they don't look at the ongoing eligibility of the contract when they look at their, when cases come to them before APAC. I believe they're just looking at the proposal, the development proposal. So that's one reason too. Different focus. But yeah, it's always a healthy thing to kind of reassess and see what other departments or whether counties are doing. Yeah. Statewide program. Okay, so we want to put this on the agenda for the next month, or am I hearing no, we want to table this until after we're all finished with the board presentation?
I mean, I'm okay continuing it to April. I don't know how, it might just be a report back. Here's just, additional context or information.
Mhm.
So, yeah, either way, or we could just wait till the May, whatever meeting.
May
May
6th.
8th.
May
May 8th is.
8th, 2 days
2 days
after.
after. There still may be uncertainties that soon.
Why is it such a rush? Is there any reason?
It's just a request from our department to take a look at making some changes. I don't want to say too much, but it's just something it's been an issue for a while. But we could wait 2 months. We'll put it on the May, if we could look at the long-term, agenda planning, put it on the May agenda, and that would give Alex time to consider and see what happens at the board when we present. Okay? So do I need me to make a motion to keep it or just carry it over?
Just to continue it to that May 8th.
Okay,
So, second.
that was a motion.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson. And the vote carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And last thing I wanted to put on a report from committee members. I did want to have one item for the next meeting, which is an enforcement case, and that one came through Sergio. We sent the letter out, and that one will be coming we'll be discussing it at the April meeting next month, and that one, getting the name of the
Were-
case. It was a letter that we just sent out.
It was one for Rancheria.
It's I think it's called Over There
Over there.
Ranch,
Mhm.
I believe, yes, LLC. It's a change in ownership. And then there'll be 3 additional ones in May. Same issue.
Sorry, just related to the same contract or?
No,
Different
different, okay.
contracts, yeah.
I think the ones, so the one I mentioned, Rancheria, that one had to do with the eminent domain or something?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, April might be busy.
Is that a busy month?
I'm just saying, those, we've already continued the Sunstone.
Yes.
We've got the 2 Ballard Ranch ones that we continued a year ago. We continued them to April of this year. And that, I'm gonna, after the meeting, talk with Teresa on that, how to contact those owners to let them know they're gonna, because they probably forgot. And
And what's the Ballard Ranch? Why is that going back?
remember, this was on Highway 246 in sort of the Greenbelt area, and they were on the north side of 246. And they were 2 separate owns both contracts are right next to each other, originally came in. I think Stephen Peterson was the agent originally, and they were going to do a winery, but then we started
Mhm.
looking at they were trying to look at grapes on the adjacent one. And so
Mhm.
eventually they dropped that application for the winery, but then we still had issues of ongoing eligibility with both contracts. And so they requested a continuance so that, because they were going to do some planting of additional grapes. And that way they would have time to order and do the planting plan and things. So those 2 are going to be on. So yeah, it could be a busy agenda.
Okay, very good. So that concludes our meeting, and it is 11:17.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Adjourn.